everyone, welcome to TEA's Texas Assessment Practice Test Site. What I love about this site is it looks identical to what you will see when you're taking your STAAR test. And what we're going to do today is look at all of the various tools that you have available to you while you're testing. Now keep this in mind, you might have certain tools in one test like ELA and others in a different test like algebra. And so that just really depends on which test is being taken. So what I'm going to do is leave this as guest user and guest session, and I'm going to go ahead and sign in. On the day of testing, you'll get some instructions on how to sign in. I'm going to go ahead and choose, for starters, a 9th grade ELA test. Let's do STAAR new item types, just so you can see how to use those along with the learning of the new tools. All right, so here I am. This is what you're going to see when you sign into your test, and we do have some options available. Okay, so you can turn those on, or you can even change your color background if that's a little bit better for your eyesight. Okay, and so I encourage you to use what is most comfortable to you. All right, so these settings look fine to me. I'm going to go ahead and choose select, and I'm going to begin the test now. Here we go. Let's look at the basic layout of what's available. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the reading passage. And on the right, you'll see the first question and tabs at the upper right with each additional question. Notice I was able to click through these questions without answering. So you can look at these out of order. I encourage you to work these in order though, just to make sure that you are answering everything, but you can always go back. That's okay. As I hover over an answer, it does highlight the answer choice that I'm selecting. I just haven't clicked yet. And when I'm ready to lock in my answer, I simply click on that answer choice. Notice it does not have an A, B, C, D, or E. And there are several question types that are a little bit different. So I'm not going to put the exact word in there, but you can see you'll need to find the word that suggests the name Nikhil is inclusive of 2 cultures. Here's a question that does have the A, B, C, or D. So you will see some of those. And here's a question that asks us to choose different options within each category here. The first category being expresses an idea about society and does not express an idea about society. In this box, I'll be typing. Notice it says support your answer with evidence from the excerpt. So you're going to need to find evidence from this story that goes along with your answer. Very important. And finally, this is an extended constructed response, so that's that longer essay. You'll need to make sure that you follow these items on this list because that is the rubric for which this will be graded. Now that we've looked at some of the question types, let's look at these buttons and tools available to us. The first is the back and next button. Now, if I click back here, it's going to take me through the questions all the way to the first question. And then it's grayed out once I reach the beginning of the test. If I click the next button, it will also take me back through the questions. However, I will receive an error message if I did not answer certain questions from this section. I'm going to go ahead and choose yes, and then it takes me to the next section. You'll notice that it's now 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. There's also a save button available to you, and the test does save automatically, but sometimes it's good practice just to click this button every once in a while as a fail-safe to make sure that everything is saving appropriately, especially given the nature of Wi-Fi signals and things like that. So when you finish a section of questions, just go ahead and click that button just to be on the safe side. All right, so let's take a look at some of the other tools that are available for your use. There's a few that I really like that help me get through the test. For example, you'll notice I've got this question marked for review, and I've got some notes added to it, and I've got some highlighting happening. I can also see that question 8 is folded over or tabbed up here. So I'm going to go to question 9 so you can see exactly how I did that. Now, for this, I'm going to highlight, right-click. Oops, I'm going to click and drag. I just want to get rid of this. So I'm going to right-click and remove highlight. And I got rid of that so that I could show you both how to get rid of it, and I want to show you how to add it back. Okay, so for question number 9, I am going to add a sticky note. So I click this hamburger menu here to the right and choose sticky note. Okay, and when I choose save and close, I now have a little note icon here to the right. And I can go back to sticky notes and see the very important note that I left for myself for this question. Notice it says notes are not scored. This is just to help you keep track of all of the different things going on in your brain while you're testing. I can add to it too. I would just need to choose save and close again. All right, so now I also want to mark this question for review. That just means I'm probably having trouble with it and I'm not ready to answer it just yet and I need to go back to it later. So you'll notice now that question 9 is tabbed just like question 8. And that's just because I used that mark for review flag, and it just allows me to find those really quickly. Now let's pop on over to the left-hand side and look at the highlighting tools. And these feel a little bit more hidden. The easiest way to highlight something that you feel is important is just to click and drag over the words, right-click, and choose Highlight Selection. There are 4 available colors, and you can decide why yellow is important or why green is important, and so on. Now, once I did that, it opened up this hamburger menu here, and I can reset the highlighting if I want, or I can highlight again and choose Highlight Selection and highlight that way. I think the easiest way is just to click and drag, right-click, and highlight. Moving on to the upper right-hand corner of our screen, we've got a few other tools available. The dictionary is a great tool. I hope you use it. I used the word intense. It was the first thing I could think about because I feel like the test is sometimes intense. I typed it in after clicking the dictionary button, and it gives me 3 different definitions of the word. And this is a great tool because you often have to figure out which definition is being used. What I really like is this audio button
intense,
here,
intense,
which I can use to have the word read, and sometimes that kind of triggers a memory of that word. So great tool, the dictionary option right here. There's also another notepad, similar to the sticky notes. However, this notepad, let me click save and close, will exist across questions. So the sticky note that we talked about earlier leaves a note just for this question, whereas the notepad you can use throughout the duration of the test. To the right of that is the line reader button. Once you click it, each line will be highlighted and you can just click on each line. Sometimes it makes the reading a little bit easier. And then finally, the zoom in and zoom out. Now I'm all the way zoomed out, so I'm going to zoom in, makes the font a little bit larger. Zoom out makes the font a little bit smaller. Right above that is the help button. And I really, really love this help guide. It's going to help you understand the dashboard if you get lost or you don't remember something that is in this tutorial video. It does have the buttons and what each of those buttons do. And then the pause button is really great if you're running out to the restroom or you need to take a quick break. And it does say you have until the end of the test administration window to resume your test. So if you're stepping away for a second with teacher permission, of course, you can click that pause button. And so now I'm paused and I can come back to my test and it will pick up right where I left off. Let's go ahead and look at a different kind of test. Instead of ELA, we're going to shift over to math, or in our case, algebra. So that's going to be grade 9, and of course, you will not have to select that. That's just because we're in this practice space. I'm going to do STAAR new item types, and I'm going to scroll down until I see STAAR algebra. Now, if you are a student who receives text-to-speech accommodations, you'll be able to turn this on, and it will read the test to you. You can still adjust your color setting. So if you like the light yellow or white on red, that one's rough on my eyes, you can adjust that there. And you can use text to speech if that's an accommodation that's allowed to use. So that's auto text to speech or text to speech based on what you select. I would suggest this option because you have more control over what's being read to you. So I'm going to go ahead and choose select. Actually, let me go back one. I'm going to turn on that text to speech so that I can show you what that looks like for those students that will need that for the test. I'm going to choose select. Now, because I selected that text to speech, it does give me the option to make sure I can hear everything appropriately, and it gives me 3 different voices to choose from. Let's go with Zira.
This text is being read aloud.
Okay.
This text is being read aloud.
Now, let's say I didn't like the way that sounded. I'm going to adjust that to David, and I'm going to make David speak a little faster.
This text is being read aloud.
Okay, so that's how you can customize the way that it's being read to you. Now, again, this is not going to be available for every student. It has to be a specified accommodation. All right, so I'm going to click continue. Oops, I heard the voice, and continue. All right, let's look at this test and see what we have available in the math space. So right out of the gate, you'll notice there are a few additional tools at the top, and I no longer have the dictionary available. For starters, I've got my references sheet here. You may recognize this sheet from previous paper-based tests, but all of them are available to you that you might need on this test. So make sure you use this. Again, that's the references button. This is going to be really important for you to be successful on many of the questions unless you have all of these memorized. And I don't know about you, but I do not. So let me close that out. I also have a calculator, and I can choose the TI graphing calculator or Desmos graphing calculator. So we'll practice with those. It looks a lot like what you see in class. I'm going to go back to that really quickly. And there we go. Okay. I also have the same notepad that was available in the previous part of this video. It just gives us notes across the questions. I do have a line reader as well. And I have graph paper here. So anything I use up here, like the calculator or the references or the graph paper, if I click on the top of this, I can drag it around, okay? So here's where this can get a little bit tricky, and it's important that you practice with it. So depending on what you are creating, you can add a point and add another point, and then you use the connect line button to connect those two together, or you can just freehand draw, okay? So freehand draw looks a little bit different, okay? I can also reset. I can change the colors. I can change the grid size, okay? So that's the graph paper option. Up here to the upper right of the question, I have some of the same tools as we've already talked about, the mark for review. We've got the sticky notes if you want to keep this with the question. Because I turned on the text to speech, I now have the speak question option as well. Again, I can go next. I can click save if I don't trust my network connection. And then I've got a few other options at the top. My help button is still available and my pause button is still available. I also have a system settings, and that gets us back to the pitch and the rate of the speaker for that text to speech question. So those are some of the math tools you might see available. Really important that you practice with those so that you feel confident when it comes to testing. Now that we've looked at some of the different types of tools, let's just take a peek at some of the question types, what they'll look like. It's really different than the multiple choice test we took in the past, but don't let that intimidate you. You can do this. You know how to answer these, but all you'll have to do is, for many of them, you'll just enter the answer in the space provided, and it even says that right here. Enter your answer in the space provided. What you do have available is these tools down at the bottom to help you build your answer. So for example, if it's a fraction, let's do 1/2, I use this little fraction button here. And I've got other examples here so that I can build that out. I can also use my keyboard, so there you go. I can use these buttons here, so I can go completely back, or I can redo, undo, or I can skip to the front or back of the line here. So those tools are available to me. Let's go to a few other questions. I want to see if I can find something a little bit different. Okay, a little different. All right, so this is a little bit different of a question. It's graphing, and I can see the 3 different things here. Okay. So again, I'm going to choose one of the 3 here that represents what's going on in this question. So that's something you might see. This wants you to select 2 points on the coordinate plane, and a line is going to connect those. So you have to select the correct ones, and I'm just clicking on them. If I need to deselect, I just click on it again. So that's important to know as well. And it is going to give me a message if I don't finish that answer. So this one is graphing again. I can actually click on the space. Now, of course, you're going to want to click on the correct space here. I just clicked anywhere for the purposes of this video, but you'll want to make sure that you do the math here and that you get this, this slope correct. Okay, so let's look at yet another type of graphing question, but you'll notice there's 3 different things that it's asking for, and I just want you to be able to manipulate this graph appropriately. So of course, you'll work this out. You'll know exactly where to put your coordinates, but you want to make sure you do everything, okay? So the way that you do this is you click on the first graph and plot points, and it will create a line. Now, I can change that to dashed if I need to make that dashed or solid. Now, for the second graph, I just click on graph 2. And again, I didn't look at any of these numbers up here. I'm just putting these wherever so I can show you how to use the tool. So now I've got 2. Of course, I can change that to solid or dashed. And then finally, the solution set. I can click within one of these areas, and it will gray that out. Then I just press next. If I go back, you'll notice that's still there. And I can move on about the test. Here we've got a graph and a solution set. All right, so this is a timeline question. It's a little bit trickier. What I do with this is I decide which of these I need to use and click on it, and then hover over the center, and I can adjust it where it needs to go. I can even add more than one if I need to, or if the question requires that. Here's a drop-down question, and I would need to fill in both of these spaces. And here is a select more than one answer. So this is sort of like a multiple choice. You're just picking 2, or however many it says. It might say select 3. It might say select, it'll give you the instructions here. Just do as it says. If you see a question that looks like this, notice it says move the correct answer to each box. And this is really important. Each answer may be used more than once. I think that we get hung up on that. We think that we can only use these one time, but you actually can drag a number twice. Oh, there we go. It has to be large. That's our symbols. And then, of course, that's what we would, how we would drag the numbers. Now I can always drag them back and start over. And here we have a question like we saw in ELA, where we're selecting from categories to the right of the actual either passage, or in this case, it gives you some data here on the left-hand side, and you would decide if it's a function or not a function. And so you don't want to leave these blank. Everything needs to have a check. Okay, so we've looked at math and we've looked at ELA. Let's see if science has anything different. I'm going to go ahead and sign in like I normally have. Again, you won't have to worry about this. It's just the way that we have to get in because it's a demo dashboard. Let's scroll down to biology. And now we see a few different things here. At the top, we see the large mouse pointer, and you can adjust this. Kind of changes the way that pointer looks. For me, it's a little bit more challenging. If you have the accommodation, you'll have the text-to-speech, both the automated and the text-to-speech where you're in control of it. You have some zoom options so that you can set your view to larger or smaller. And then of course your calculator is turned on, and I'll show you two different kinds of calculators you'll have available. Spelling assistance is also an accommodation. And then we have the red on white, white on red, light blue, etc. For background. But we've already talked about that, so we don't need to go back through that part. And here we go. Let's check out what options are available and what question types you'll see within the STAAR science related test, so STAAR biology in our case. So up at the top, you should see some familiar things here. This calculator is a bit different. You have a basic and a scientific. So if I select the basic, it looks just like a normal cell phone sort of calculator. This little squiggly line will take me back where I can choose the scientific calculator. Let's close that out. I still have the notepad available, which we talked about previously in the video. And I still have the graph paper because I might need that for my science test as well. All of that was talked about previously as well. I still have the line reader so that I can see all of those different things. And then I have my zoom in and my zoom out features. The next, back, and save buttons are all the same as we previously discussed. And then the hamburger menu here still has the sticky notes, the mark for review, and if I need help with any of these tools. Okay. All right, so here, let's look at a few of these different question types just so we can make sure that you know what is being asked of you. In this case, you just type your answer. Oops. Let's see, this one's supposed to be a number, I believe, so let's see if it takes that. Okay, after pausing, I have realized if you hit the space bar, I'm just putting the words roots, that's not the answer. If you hit the space bar, it's going to turn this red and say that an invalid character is in there. That's because it wants letters only. So see, it says invalid character entered. So I have to get rid of that space. So I wanted to make sure you knew that that happens because it kind of tricked me for just a second. I had to pause the recording to figure out what was going on. So now I'm going to choose next. This says the cross between two individuals with the genotype SSRR is shown in the Punnett square. So in this case, you would just enter your text. Now, for this one, you've got some images, and it might be a little bit confusing what to do. You'll select the two correct answers. I can deselect by just clicking off of those. Here we go. This one is 3 correct answers. So let's say these are the 3 correct answers. That's what I would select. Again, just deselect by clicking off of those pieces. For this type of question, you'll drag these options down into the spaces provided. This is not correct. I'm just dragging them so that you can see. Okay, again, a drag and drop. The only difference between this one is that it gives you 3 options and only 2 boxes. So don't be afraid to leave one up there. Here's your traditional multiple choice. The only difference is there's a part A and a part B. Again, part A and part B. Make sure you answer both of those. Okay, now we've gotten rid of the A, B, C, and D and all of the letters. That means that we're going to select more than one answer. So in this case, select 2 correct answers. Again, select more than one. And here we go. We've got a short constructed response. So make sure that you answer both of the following questions, because if you only answer one of these, you're not going to get this correct. So you'll need to answer what are the 2 relationships that could exist and what additional information would be required. Now let's take a look at this editor within the short constructed response. You won't use a lot of these. You probably need to write in complete sentences and not in a bulleted list, but it is available to you. So be wary of using those. You can boldface, italicize, and underline. So bold. So this is bolded, italicized, and underlined because they're all turned on. Get rid of the underline, get rid of the italics, get rid of the bold. Oops, we missed the italics. There we go. And you can also do a spell check. So there's your spelling assistance. Okay. Notice down below in the number of characters, you only have 475 characters, not words. So you can fill that up pretty quickly, so be careful what you write. All right, here's another short constructed response. And that about does it for the science question types. All right, and so really quickly, I paused the video and I popped over to a social studies example so I could show you the last and final adjustments that you might need to make based on the test that you're taking. So this is social studies. It looks like we have some drop-down question types here. Let's look at the options at the top. Most of them you recognize. Now we do have a graph here, so you might use this in a much different way, but you should recognize that from the math and the science test as well. Let's look at these question types and just see if there's anything that stands out as different. We've got some drop downs here. We've got select the correct answer. Looks similar to science, or biology, I should say. In this is a hotspot type question. You'll want to select 2 of those based on this prompt here. And then we've got, it says, select the correct answer. Which selections from President Nixon's inaugural address describe the future policy here? So you would just select which one you felt like answered that. Okay. In this case, be careful because it says select 2 correct answers. So just make sure you really read the instructions really well. Okay, this is a drag and drop. And I like how it grays out the ones that I've already selected. And it's a little tricky getting this, there you go, getting it to stick in the right space. Now, of course, we can move these around or back and then make sure that we have that correct. All right, so moving on. Same thing there. Here we've got part A and part B multiple choice, just like the science test. Part A and part B again. Here we've got, I'm not even sure what to call this, a choice matrix. There we go. Different things that you're supposed to check. So it's important that you get all of these correct so that you can get full credit for this question. There should be a check box in each category here. Same thing here. And again, you should remember this from ELA and science. Select 2 correct answers. And you'll recognize that because, again, there's no A, B, C, or D. And again, we've got a short, a short constructed response. We've got the same tools as before. And it says explain 2 ways that the New Deal affected the historical roles of state and federal governments. If I don't add those 2 ways, I cannot get this question correct. I still have a 475 character limit. All right, those are all of the new item types for STAAR U.S. History or Social Studies, and hopefully all of these tools are really recognizable for you now. Let's talk about when you're ready to submit your test. At the top, and this goes for every test, so at the top you'll see this items option. I can look and see anything I've marked for review. As a matter of fact, I'm going to mark this for review so that you can see that. Okay, there's my blue flag, so I can go back to it and check it. So I can even mark something for review that I've already answered. Okay, let me mark this for review. Just because I want you to see that I can have both an answer and a flag. When I'm done and I'm ready to turn my test in, I just choose End Test. If you get any error messages, go back and check. You can see that I did not answer 3, 4, 5. That's no good. I need to go back and answer those. But for now, I'm going to pretend like I did and choose Submit Test. It'll ask if you're sure, and yes. And once you submit, you can no longer go back. So be very careful not to do that until you're completely confident that you've done a great job. Thanks for watching this STAAR tutorial video. I hope it's helpful to you. I hope it makes you more comfortable and confident on testing day.